that was great fun because you had to figure out a story around what Hitchcock was saying in any particular thing.
Michael, I would ask you this. According to IMDb, as we always have to say, your first credit was with Alfred Hitchcock Presents in 1988. Could you please tell us, it was something iconic like that? What was that like?
Yeah, that was a great job. So that was the early days of cable, and at the time, Universal Studios owned all the the rights to the Alfred Hitchcock show, and so what they decided to do was basically, like they all do now, raid their libraries, try to find a way to make money off their old stuff. So what they did was they basically paid for, I think, 100 episodes. They just committed to like 100 episodes or something insane to produce in Toronto for cheap. And what they did was they went to the old Alfred Hitchcock show from, I guess, the 60s, and they took all the Alfred Hitchcock parts. So you may or may not have ever seen the show, but it was always like these little thrillers and mysteries. And it would start with Alfred Hitchcock himself saying, "Today we are going to see," and he'd give this little introduction. And then at the end, he'd wrap it up with some pithy remark. So they pulled all those parts out and looked at them and said, okay, we want new stories around what he says in the beginning. So it would be like, "Today we are going to the ivory towers of a university." And then anyway, so this guy who ran that show, his brother and I were friends, and his brother and I were both trying to be writers, and God bless, he was actually my roommate. His brother said, "Hey, I'll hire you guys if you want to work on them together," which again, we never wanted to have writing partners, but it was like, yes, by all means. That's what got me in the Writers Guild. And we ended up, it was the Writers Guild strike that killed that job for me in 1988, because we were actually on our way. We wrote at least 2 and we sold stories for like 2 more. But then the strike came, and so the job ended for me, unfortunately. But that was great fun because you had to figure out a story around what Hitchcock was saying in any particular thing, and they would send us. We went. There was almost no videotape even then, but we went and videotape of it all, and then decided what we wanted to write about.
That's the old AIP method of movie making. Come up with a poster and a title, and then write something.
Yeah. In the 80s, that was pretty. I mean, even before the 80s, but in the 80s it was
60s, 70s, 80s. Roger Corman.
Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't pitch them something about Thai pirates, Mike?
No, that was.
I know what that.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so that was. So those were fun shows because you only had 30 minutes, and you had to trick the audience. And there's a great one, by the way, if you're just curious about how they work this, with Mark Hamill. Which I didn't write, but it's the most brilliant one. It's about a guy jumping off Mark Hamill's on the ledge of a building. He's going to kill himself. And if you can find that online, it's really excellent and a great example of how these shows, how that show worked. It was quite
half hour.
Half hour, yeah.
It's a very fun writing exercise to be able, it seems like a fun challenge, like almost, because sometimes when you're given certain limitations or like confines to work within, it makes writing more enjoyable, because like sometimes for me the hardest thing about writing is limitless options, and you don't really know where to go. But if you have like this intro with Alfred Hitchcock talking and an outro, and you're tasked with the challenge of trying to fit a story within that confine, that seems like such a entertaining challenge.
It was great. And the other reason it was great was the producers themselves were limited by that. So they couldn't come in and just blow the whole thing up.
Right.
The note, they were like, "Oh shit, we got to stay in the college form." And so that saved us a lot of nonsense that can definitely happen in the development process. So yeah, it was good fun.